Felicia, just when you thought the Scott Frank script couldn't get any better, when it couldn't have any more twists and turns, where something couldn't be more chaotic, it did.
Yeah.
It does, and it do.
It isn't like the opera where you're like, man, Act 1 was crazy, but what's Act 2 gonna have in store? Oh, it's like nothing. No, this Act 2 is, if anything, more nuts than. I mean, it is.
It's like
it's a work of art.
We just went on a roller coaster, and we were going up, and then you're like, oh, okay, now we're gonna go down. But then the roller coaster flew off the rails, and then you realized that you're flying in the air. And then you wake up and you're on a train. It makes no sense, and yet it does, and it's beautiful. And to be honest, I can't even.
This one, this feels like this is the point where Scott Frank went, fuck it, I don't fucking know, man.
Right, and
that's
beautiful.
What the script really just is, and it feels so. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with everybody here. We're both real tired today, so thankfully we just get to warm up by the Wonka Well hearth and tell a little tale. And listen to the best of Scott Frank's beautiful masterpiece.
Now that's what I call Scott Frank, a CD that you can buy nowhere, but it's in the mix.
A giant desert in the Wonka factory.
Oh my god!
Squirrels that wear business clothes.
Creepy reflections that reveal old men.
God, I forgot about that. And Oompa Loompas who love Beck.
So good.
I'll be honest, I read the second half of the script at 3 a.m. about 2.5 to 3 weeks ago. So my recollections are a little bit hazy. So I'm excited to get to re-experience it today.
Oh, yeah. I'm stoked as well.
Welcome to Wonka Watch. This chill low-key vibe is brought to you by the migraine I had 3 hours ago.
And we have a twin system, so if Felicia has a migraine, I also have a migraine. We know what's happening for each other at any point.
Do you actually?
Felicia, take a random guess why I'm tired today.
Did you stay up late and are you a little hungover?
Maybe. Maybe that happened.
Anyway, welcome to Wonka Watch. This is a podcast where we talk about all the Wonka garbage that's in the world. This one isn't garbage though. This one's like a fucking. This is the Mona Lisa for us.
Oh
this
my god!
This is the Mona Lisa proverbially within the Wonka well and verse whatever. I don't fucking know, man.
I would pay full price to see this.
Oh no, genuinely,
right?
I wish we could make this. I wish this was real. Anything I had good to say about the 2005 movie has been decimated because I know what could have been.
Burned to an absolute crisp. Yeah, I was like, 2005 sucks even more now because this could have been.
I'm Felicia. That's
I'm
Elaine.
Hey.
And the prequel is coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. And speaking of the prequel, oh my god, what is this out of the fireplace? A la Sirius Black in the Gryffindor common room. It's a young man's face. What? It's Wonka Watch news, and who is that? It's Colin O'Brien. The famed cast member Colin O'Brien. Surprise, surprise. In a recent, I should probably just find the fucking video because it's all of 10 seconds long.
But I didn't get to work with him, so I was playing the younger version of his character.
It's real. It's real. He's officially playing young Wonka. This is not really news because we've known this for forever. Just because have you seen him?
Yeah,
but
we used our skills of detectiveness.
Yeah, we'll say we never made a prediction about it though, which pissed me off. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?
Can we get a half point?" Oh,
I know.
Damn it! Why do we do this?
I think this gives great credence to my Sally Phillips or Sally Hawkins.
Sally Hawkins.
Who's Sally Phillips? Did I just invent a new person?
You might have. Let's take a gander.
Who is Sally Phillips?
Oh, Sally Phillips is...
she's from Taskmaster. So I don't know. It's not huge news because I feel like we've known it for forever, but it's nice to be like, we were right. But I feel like the problem is now that we have confirmation, we're like, okay, but we knew. We're not...
I like how smug we suddenly get to be. We're like, yeah, obviously. We knew that. If you look at the Wonka
you were young
lore
Wonka.
and you apply the equation and what new things could you bring a present Wonka mother,
Yeah, but I have another thing to talk about.
Ooh.
Because you know what I finally watched? I finally watched Bones and All. Bones and All, the
was
cannibal
the finger
movie.
looking good?
It was.
Really?
By the way, did you know the Beastie Boys have a song called Finger Looking Good? And it's one of my favorite songs, and it makes me laugh so hard every time I hear it. It's, there's a line in it where one of them says, I got bigger buns than my man Paul Bunyan, and I think about it all the time. Yeah, I actually liked it. This is the big surprise, because me and Luca Guadagnino, I don't know how to say his last name. I'm not realizing I don't know how to say his last name. Just leave. Luca, the guy who directed it. But I have not had a great track record with this man's films. I watched Call Me By Your Name, and they were just too young and too full of life, and I couldn't relate as a spry 15-year-old. I said, they're not world-weary enough. And I watched Suspiria, which was the most boring movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Didn't need to be 2.5 hours long. Original Suspiria is very fun, and it's like if the original Suspiria had the visual element of completing tax forms.
Wow. Okay.
Knowing that he was in charge of this movie, I was a little bit like, okay, I love everything in concept, but we have not had a great track record. I also had recently read the book, and I thought it was pretty decent. So I was like, okay, we'll see. But that was the thing. I really liked it. And I think all of the changes it made from the book were genuine improvements, which is what I always like. That's what I want out of my book adaptations.
Yeah.
And it was just real good. I really liked it. Mark Rylance, who played the main villain, was very good, but he was also giving me Link from Good Mythical Morning in like a weird sketch. And I don't know how to explain that, but like I just need it to be said, and it's so accurate, and I kept like being mad I didn't have anyone next to me to go like, you see it, right? Timothy Chalamet's knees were so present in this film, and I just want it to be said, they almost felt like I wasn't supposed to be seeing them. Like, and I don't mean like in a like way where I was like, wow, sexy. It just felt like this feels wrong. Like, I don't know why your knees are so out there and present. He had those ripped jeans where it was more of a suggestion of the bottom of the leg than it was an actual pant leg.
Oh, yeah.
But like when he would, he was wearing jeans the whole movie. They also never changed clothes this entire movie. They had the same outfit on, and it was over multiple months. So, but you know, he would do the thing where he sits with like his knees up, and when he would sit like that, you'd be like, he's wearing shorts. And then he would stand up and you're like, wow, there are still cuffs on those legs. That's interesting that you would do that. But I will say, I think it's funny. I think I forget Timothy Chalamet is actually an actor. Yeah. And is good in things, because I was like, wow, I really like his performance in this, and he's not just this guy who lives in a fucking sewer and comes out to play Wonka and then we'll never hear from him again. Like, he's in other movies, we just don't watch them, but he was really good. And there were these moments where I was like, man, I think I really like his performance in this. And then I was like, you can't. And I was like, why can't I? I was like, it's like, it felt like I was having to like separate church and state. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely
I need to find you a video of these ripped pant legs, because I not a video. You don't need a video. I just need you to see how present his knees are in this film.
Good Lord.
His knees are fucking out.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a lot of knee.
Yeah.
Too much
okay,
knee.
no, he is wearing shorts there. See, this is what I mean. You can't tell. You can't tell. Right
no,
away.
I understand. This is no diss to him, but the knees are a little awkward.
But I did have one line I want to pull out of the movie that I had seen out of context, as I do think is very funny. In a very dramatic scene revealing about his past, Timothy Chalamet says this single statement, and is also what I like to think he would say, comparing his performance to some of the other Wonka performances.
I hate him right the fuck up.
So that's Bones and All. I cut out about 10 minutes of me just telling Elaine about it, so,
And I'm intrigued.
Check it out.
Watch it now.
You see some people bite some shit. You see a little bit of organ, but nothing too crazy.
Well, speaking of people biting shit, what about a chocolate factory filled with edible items?
This means it's time for us to get back into this fucking script.
Here we go.
I don't even think we can recap everything from just go listen to the last episode.
Yeah.
If we tried to recap all the bullshit that happened, not bullshit, good shit.
Beautiful shit.
We're jumping back in. We were at the point where Wonka comes out in a Japanese kimono with red eyes, who looks like he's been partying all night, and offers them a chocolate from a metal cigarette case.
Amazing.
He offers it to the children, and the kids all take one except for Augustus. And then Wonka to Augustus says, you're a fat one, aren't you? I can see we've set a lot of limits in your house. but then already is like, but it's your parents' fault. Like, they fucking suck. Wonka goes to introduce himself to Violet, and Mrs. Beauregard is like, listen, Mr. Wonka, I was just wondering exactly how long this little event's gonna take. See, I have a 4:30 that I really can't miss. And then Wonka goes, a 4:30? Is that a train? Anytime a train gets mentioned, I get so excited. Miss Beauregard is just very fixated on getting to this meeting. And he's like, why don't you just fucking leave then? And she's like, no. And he's like, okay, well, that's not my problem. Then he does the whole Veruca foot wart thing. You know, we know. Mike, though, is a little interesting. So his parents haven't showed up because his mom has an open house, and then his dad had to close a client. So he's just there with his skateboard and his Game Boy. He's also playing on his Game Boy.
Yeah, that's all he has. And then
it has this insane exchange. It's a Game Boy. What's it do? You play it. The ocean does not choose its trash. What?
Wonka has some. Every time Wonka says one of those Wonka-isms, those weird quotes, they've underlined it in the script, and they are quite bizarre. They fit
They feel kind of
mood.
out of place.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, what? But sure.
And then Wonka goes up to Charlie and goes, hello, Charlie, this must be your great, 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 great grandpa. And I was like, uncalled for.
Bro.
Unnecessary.
Especially when you know who it is, right? Like, he knows who this is at this point.
The two men exchange a look. Recognition? Have they met before? And I wrote fan fiction. It's the Grandpa Joe.
Flashback.
Joe Bucket. Perfect fan fiction. Wonka takes off a kimono and he's wearing a dark purple coat underneath. Now, Wonka sets his skateboard down. Not Wonka. Oh my god. Mike that would be great. That would be great. Mike puts down his skateboard, and then eventually two Oompa Loompas grab it, and a second later we hear a high-pitched Yahoo! So the Oompa Loompas steal Mike's skateboard and are just fucking running around with it.
They love it.
The Oompa Loompas in this are probably my favorite version.
They're so good. Yeah. And they still haven't been fully seen on screen, I don't think. They're just these really fast-moving things that just like zip around and grab things, and then you're like, what? What just happened? Very silly.
Yeah, so then they go into a giant movie theater lobby, and then in the script, Scott Frank writes, that's right, a giant movie theater lobby. Because why the fuck not?
He's like, I know, you're thinking, the fuck?
And then Wonka collects candy bars, like candy counters. That's just a hobby of his. And then he saved one from becoming part of a coffee bar in Seattle. And I was just thinking, like, how does Wonka feel about coffee? Because I don't think we've talked about this.
Oh.
But I feel like he must have a disdain for it. I don't know why. I feel like with this whole thing against gum, he'd be like, it's basically drugs. Meanwhile, he's like making fucking spotty powder. You know
True,
what I mean?
could see him being really... He would definitely hate tea, though. Like, he would hate tea.
It's that, or he's one of those people that gets really has a real superiority complex about being able to drink coffee black.
That, or he loves a good Java chip frappuccino.
Yeah,
there's
he's
so
one
many
of the
ways.
two. He either only drinks sugar. Really, he could drink coffee any way possible because he's a made-up man and none of this matters. But, you know.
Our entire podcast just crumbles before us.
And everybody, we just realized none of this literally fucking matters at all. And we're sitting here debating whether or not Wonka would drink a Java chip frappuccino. So we're going to log off just about now. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the episode. It's been a nice run. Nice 63 fucking episodes about Wonka. Also, I told Elaine about this, but I posted on a discussion board for my grad school that I do this podcast because we needed to provide a fun fact. And someone said, I just looked at it, 63 episodes. That seems like too many. And I was like, I know. Yeah. I agree.
It's shocking.
It feels like too many. I still love it. But also, side note, if Wonka hadn't been delayed, it would be coming out in a month.
Oh, whoa. Whoa.
And I'm like, thank fucking God they delayed it.
Yeah. Whoa.
Thank fucking God. I feel like I need 6 more months of like prep under my belt.
I know.
So Wonka grabs an usher's flashlight off the counter and heads towards the theater entrance. And they go down an endless movie theater aisle, and he says, my workers love the movies. Kurosawa, Fellini, Meyer, they love them all. So here I did some digging. My little fucking research brain came in.
I love it.
So Akira Kurosawa, very well known. He did Rashomon, Seven Samurai. If you watch a lot of classics films, you know Kurosawa. Same with Federico Fellini. He did 8.5. I was like, who the fuck is Meyer? So I figured out this was Russ Meyer, who made sexploitation films, not that famous, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. So just very much the wild card in the equation is Russ Meyer. So that was fun. Far away in the distance from the heart of the giant factory comes a muffled roar as though some giant machine is spinning its wheels at a breakneck speed. And then basically they're going underground as well. We never get a follow-up on what that machine is, by the way.
No, it's just there, and then it's like, goodbye, enter the depths of the earth.
The movie theater is on like a giant decline down, and that's like the staircase down.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to visualize, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was tried to read it over again, and I was like,
the budget for this film would have had to be fucking nuts.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
gonna tell y'all.
So much animation would have had to be like ready to go, and special effects and stuff.
This makes the Tim Burton one look restrained.
Yes, for sure. They go to the bottom of this aisle and for the movie theater, but there's curtains. Again, this is why I was a little confused, but basically Oompa Loompas are up where like the film would be, like whatever that thing is you hit play and then it shows the theater, and there's a little spotlight as the curtains pull back, there's a door, and he's like, oh, what's gonna be behind the door?
I was really hoping we would get like a please keep all hands and feet inside the vehicle kind of ass movie, but it was fine. I was okay.
He opens the door and then they enter the chocolate room. Wonka removes a giant key ring from his pocket and is about to insert a key into the lock when the door is suddenly unlocked and then opened from the inside. Wonka shakes his head, then calls into the room on the other side. Thank you so much. He has such a silly relationship with his Oompa Loompas.
They're all like his younger brother, is how I would describe it. Like,
yes.
They enter the chocolate room. It is described with green meadows that are separated by a brown river at the bottom. Halfway down the river is a giant waterfall. Trees and bushes grow along the river banks, weeping willows and alders and tall clumps of rhododendrons with pink and red and mauve blossoms. In the meadows are literally thousands of buttercups.
That's too many.
Jesus. So then he's like, it's all chocolate. And Augustus says, all of it? And he says, in fact, there's enough chocolate in there to fill every pot, barrel, bathtub in the entire country, all the swimming pools, and the hot tubs too. This is the biggest chocolate river by far.
Oof.
So Augustus is like, can I have some? And then Mrs. Gloop goes, Augie, freeze! And then he just freezes. So that's...
like a little German shepherd.
So he's like, check out the trees and the meadows. The whole countryside is edible. Even the rocks. And Mike TV, bored, shakes his head, goes, I'm not eating no rocks or meadows, and sits down on a rock and plays his Game Boy, which really made me lose my mind.
It was hilarious.
I think this is my favorite Mike TV, by far.
Same. I love
Mike
this
TV has a plot. He has a character development throughout this. It's fascinating.
It's beautiful.
We also get a Swudge reference, which I guess Swudge had to be in the book. Like, it had to be in the book, and we just erased it from our brains because, like, it doesn't make sense.
It's stupid, and
but
it's
this
boring
one,
still.
This one recognizes the name as bad because he was like, "This is made of a new soft kind of minty sugar I've just invented. I'll call it, I don't know, I'll call it Swudge." Go ahead. Like he
hadn't even thought it through. Everyone starts eating all the stuff. It's super exciting. And then we have our first Oompa Loompa sighting, and it's kind of the same thing where Veruca's like, I want one. It's kind of similar, I guess, to every other time. But there's more of a Wonka, like, they're real people.
Yeah, Charlie says they can't be real people. And he says, of course they're real people. They're Oompa Loompas. And Wonka says they also like to. And Mike goes, hey, somebody stole my Game Boy. Wonka sees for a split second 2 Oompa Loompas fighting over the Game Boy before a third Oompa Loompa appears riding Mike's skateboard, snatches the Game Boy away from the first 2, and rides into the meadow. Wonka says they like to borrow things. And I was just like, fucking nuts. What is happening?
Bananas.
Mike starts to shake uncontrollably. I can't believe this is happening. I need my Game Boy. I need to have it. And then Mrs. Gloop says to her husband, clearly a self-object. I lost my goddamn. It's so nuts. Good. Dr. Gloop tries to like reason with Mike and like has this whole, and he's like, tell me, Matt, Mike, would it be all right if I hugged you? And he says, would it be all right if I kicked your ass?
Yeah,
he gets cut off. But I mean, that's what's going to happen. I will say, though, the Oompa Loompas do continuously sexually harass Mrs. Salt in this version.
Yes, there's a lot of ass grabbing and kissing and winking and just suggestive phrasing that is uncomfy.
Which is odd. That one's odd.
Like Mrs. Salt screeches, and then there's a grab from behind. She goes, hey. And then Scott Frank has written, we see a muscular Oompa Loompa wink at her and zoom off. And then Wonka goes, they're very friendly. Like, what? No. But then she calls the Oompa Loompas Humpty Dumpties, and I did lose my shit there. That was...
Mrs. Salt also says, Wonka, I was one time a substitute preschool teacher for 3.5 months. I know that there's no place called Loompa Land, which did make me laugh really hard. I really liked that. Then we get the whole Wonka Oompa Loompa backstory. As Wonka, long-haired, severely neckless and bearded, naked, save a loincloth, rides on horseback through the forest.
Wild.
He sees a blur up in the trees and immediately pulls a Bowie knife from his saddlebag, and then he sees a treehouse. Okay, this is the strangest, I think, genuinely the bizarrest choice in the script is we now see a beautiful Nordic-looking woman scantily dressed ride up on horseback beside him. She indicates the trees. This woman is never relevant ever again.
No.
She has no reason to be here. I don't know why she was written in, and genuinely is my biggest annoyance with the script is this random woman who has no reason to be there.
Scantily clad just to be there and says nothing. And again, not even brought up later. I thought she was going to come up later.
She's not a guide from the area either.
Nope. Just
it's odd. It has the whole thing that the Oompa Loompas do seem to be more in danger than any of the other versions. Like, they are specifically more in peril. And in this version, Wonka knows Oompa Loompish is the language. Which does feel silly to say. And they also hate eating the caterpillars. It's not like a custom like it is in the other ones. They fucking hate eating them, but it's their only option. So they're like, oh, fucking sick. So that's better. Like, it's still not great, but in the scheme of Oompa Loompa portrayals, wow, what an improvement.
Yes.
This introduces the concept of the Oompa Loompa royal tribute, which is a thing where they all stand still and look at someone really hard, and that's reserved for only the most honored among them. So it does show, like, they are very enthusiastic about the whole Wonka thing in this one, because they do that to Wonka, which I'm like, okay, I guess, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's, So anyway, Mr. Salt says, wait a minute, you just brought these lumpy loompas over here to work in your factory? And Wonka says, to live in my factory. But they're working it, ain't they? Wonka says, when they feel like it, which lucky for me seems to be all the time. So this mode is better because, like, he didn't care if they actually worked in his factory. He just wanted to give them some place to live. And, like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if they stopped working for him, he would still let them live there, which is nice.
Which is the better version.
You can tell Scott Frank is making an effort to make this feel less fucked.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Very much so.
He is trying and doing better than anyone else. So Mike spots a television screen and is like, oh shit, I'm walking over there, checking that out. And then Wonka said, as you no doubt already noticed, they no longer wear their traditional forest garb. And they says, no, they don't. We see a tough looking little guy in a Britney Spears t-shirt. Another wears an NSYNC t-shirt. A girl is dressed as a rapper. Most of them have Walkmans on and they love music. And this is, number one, the first time where they're not in branded Wonka clothing, which is a big improvement. And it shows that they all have individual tastes and preferences. What an improvement. They're just people. Like,
the idea of Britney Spears existing in this universe and existing in the Wonka factory shook me. And I enjoyed it, but wow.
Later, one of them is wearing a Beck t-shirt, and I don't know why that's the one that's... I think it's because Beck is not that mainstream. Yeah. Like, he is, but it's not like... It's not Britney Spears, where I'm like, Beck? Like, Beck got a Wonka call out. Anyway, so Mike finds a control panel among the rocks, which basically controls the weather of the chocolate room. So there's thunder, wind, rain, lightning, snow. And
Absolutely
he's like,
loved it.
Yeah, just like... gonna fuck around with it. And then
and all the weather is like candy, so it's like lemonade rain, and the hail is like gumballs and crap like that.
So then Augustus is zombie like walking towards the river. And then this is another thing. Wonka did not teach them English. He said they taught themselves English. I don't know how. So it's not like he made them learn English for him. Yeah. Like in some of the other versions, he's just like, I don't know, man, they did it. So it's like, they have way more autonomy in this one than any other one by like a landslide. A female assistant Oompa Loompa stands next to him with a clipboard. There's a woman Oompa Loompa. And the Oompa Loompas also speak. Wow. Yes.
And they are not all orange and the same.
They are all different races.
They're all different races. So Mrs. Salt's like, they don't look like they all came from the same tribe. And then Wonka goes, interesting thing about Loompa Land is that its people are of all different colors and ear shapes.
He said, yes, in fact, the only unifying characteristic is that they're all short. Something but the Oompas from the north and the Loompas from the south merging. I don't know. Shall we move on? So now we get the, I want an Oompa Loompa right now, which she's Southern. I want an Oompa Loompa, Daddy, because she's Southern. We need to make our adjustments. So the head Oompa Loompa zooms over. Wonka bends down so he can whisper something to Wonka. And this is one of my favorite parts of the script. Wonka goes, "What? Since when? Oh, brother."
Yeah.
He goes, all right. The Oompa Loompas have just informed me that they've opened a gift shop and that perhaps Veruca might want to purchase one of their dolls. This is one of my favorite bits. And, like, just the fact that he doesn't even fucking know what's going on, that the Oompa Loompas have enough power and control in this factory to open a whole fucking gift shop that Wonka doesn't even know about. Which, granted, this factory is so huge. It is basically a country. The size of this factory. It's nuts. Anyway.
He doesn't even know how many Oompa Loompas there are. Somebody asks him and he goes, I don't know.
Doesn't he say, like, they're fucking breeding all the time, man?
He does!
Like, he says something that, like, the Oompa Loompas get down and dirty. And I was like, wild.
It's like, oh
That's
my
fucking
God.
nuts. So yeah, they put lemonade and root beer and shit like that. They have hailstones that are gumballs from Mike TV fucking around with the little thing. Mrs. Salt ducks under a tree, tries to protect her leather jacket from the weather, and then Augustus is lying on a rock by the edge of the river, scooping melted chocolate into his mouth as fast as he can, but then is also muttering, "Can I have some?" on repeat. I don't know what this was. This confused me. I didn't get this part.
Yeah, I feel like it was just like his system kind of glitching where like he's been told by his parents like there's phrases he has to say to calm down kind of thing like that. And so he's like saying the thing, but he's answering it for himself, and whatever like conditional behavioral training they've done has just completely fried. It's gone.
So then Wonka goes, "Augustus, come away, you're contaminating my chocolate." And then Dr. Gloop goes, "That's right, Augie, you don't want to give that impetigo of yours to anyone else." I looked this up. This is a very contagious skin infection rash. So then Wonka's like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me." He says, Wonka gives a "you're kidding me" look to Dr. Gloop, but now the storm really ranges. Lemonade rail, gumball hail, all of it hits. I just said 18 words wrong in that last sentence. I don't think a single word came out of my lemonade rail, gumball hail. I put my crab in a pail. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
All that shit is flying down and the river is growing.
And then Mrs. Gloop says, "Augustus, I'm going to have to take away a privilege," which was funny. And then everything goes dark and Wonka says, "Will someone please turn the sun back on?" And now there's lightning. And then this is nuts. Augustus is just about to reach into the river again. The huge wave of chocolate is building behind him as Wonka, standing in the center of a storm, his hat blown off, his long coat billowing behind him in the wind, now points his walking stick at Mike TV. "You boy." Oh, it's so good. It's giving very Noah and the Ark was what this moment was giving me. It felt almost biblical.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, "Quit playing with the weather." And then Augustus takes a big sip of chocolate and turns just as the huge chocolate wave engulfs him. And there was a moment where Mrs. Gloop goes, "Save him!" Wonka says, "What for? He'll drown." "Only if he can't swim." "He can't swim a yard." "Oh, well then." And I could like hear the score for that moment where, where it's like, beer, and it stops as soon as, and then Wonka goes, "Oh, well then." And then it picks back up again. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Like, you know exactly what the score would sound like in that moment. Wonka goes, "Quick, throw him a lifesaver," which Wonka does attempt to help. The Oompa Loompas throw a lifesaver in, and he says, No, not the green one. No one likes the green one. Throw him a red one."
So good.
So they throw that into the chocolate river.
But then Augustus likes it too much, and he eats the red lifesaver, and now he's back to drowning.
Yeah. It's wild. Mrs. Gloop says, "Do something," and Wonka says, "I wish I could." So he's in one of the pipes now. We see Augustus Gloop shooting upward head first like a torpedo inside the glass pipe. Mrs. Gloop says, "Smash the pipe!" Mike screams, "Blow it up!" Wonka gives him a look. Wonka sees the head Oompa Loompa looking at him and shrugs a sort of "hell if I know" shrug.
It was so good. Such a good note.
Wild. Then he goes up the pipe. We know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Gloop is real freaked out about it, and he says, "A most interesting little journey he'll have, but he'll come out of it just fine. You wait and see." Then we get the taste would be terrible kind of joke, but he winks at Charlie about it, which I was like, that's nice,
Bones and all.
I guess. I ate him right the fuck up.
No.
Moving on. So the boat shows up. Oh yeah, the Oompa Loompas look at the Gloops and start laughing. Just fuck off.
They're just like, "You stupid idiots." But my favorite part about the boat is that, so we have Miss Beauregard now. They're like, "Wow, the Oompa Loompas even row his boat." And Wonka hears her. He goes, "It's not a boat, my dear Mrs. Booyah Baz." I don't And she goes, no, it's Beauregard. And then Wonka goes, it's my private yacht. I made her by hollowing out an enormous boiled sweet. Look how she cuts through the water. This Wonka is a boat boy. He likes boats. The gleaming boat now glides up to the riverbank. I
call her SS Wonkers.
Yeah. Oh my God.
This was so confusing. And Oompa Loompa plants the evidence of the stolen Game Boy on Charlie.
Yes.
So the Oompa Loompa puts a stolen Game Boy in Charlie's pocket. Charlie sits down and crunches it. And then he hears the crunch. Charlie gets back up, takes Mike's TV's now mangled Game Boy from his back pocket, and looks at it. And Mike yells, "Hey, Twink!" Mike TV called Charlie a twink. When our listener who emailed this to us, was it?
So yeah, Mike's like, you stole it. And she's like, no, I didn't. And then Wonka's like, you know what? These kids are fighting. Let me try to deal with it. And that was weird. And then for me, one of the best scenes happens. Wonka just sits between them. He's like, who wants a candy bar? They all turn and see Wonka standing there. He holds out a candy bar to Mike, who just looks at it. And Wonka's like, everyone's like, candy bars are junk food, but no, they're not. I've just invented something new. And I think it'll help. It's called food for thought. This particular candy bar helps kids concentrate. And I'm like, for me, I'm like, no, he's not. Wonka tosses Mike the candy bar, and Mike reads the candy bar, and it says Wonka's riddle in bar.
Oh my God, I didn't even get the Ritalin joke.
You didn't? So
I didn't get the Ritalin. Yeah.
Wonka goes, yeah, that's right. There's a riddle in every bar. Go on, open it up. And so Mike opens it up, and we now have a scene where everyone's just Wonka gives everyone one of these Ritalin bars. Like he's cracking everyone out. And we just go through
all of them opening these riddles.
Yeah, and they have riddles. So like Mike's first one is, how many sides does a circle have? And he's like, a circle? Wonka goes, think hard. So Mike takes a bite of the candy bar and sits down. And Wonka's like, look, it's working. See how calm he is? See how quiet it is? And then Mike's like, circles don't have any sides. They're round. And Wonka goes, of course they have sides. And Mike's like, they don't. And Wonka's like, yes, they do. They've got two sides, an inside and an outside. And then he starts, handing it up to people.
Violet has one that says, how many bricks does it take to complete a building made of brick? It depends on how big she's like, depends on how big the building is. And I was like, I would answer that. I would answer that 100%. And he goes, it only takes one, the last one. He's like so excited about and he doesn't let anybody else try.
No.
He just is like.
Which fits Wonka so well. Of course, Wonka would be like, no, you fucking idiot. I'm the only one who understands riddles. I'm so smart. Riddle master. And then Wonka just keeps going, see how focused we all are? I'm like, what are we doing?
Mike gets one, what sticks to you, but you don't mind? And Wonka's like, you're going to need help with this one. Charlie, why don't you give him a hand? And Mike's like, I don't need your help. And this starts Mike TV's plot line on his way of rejecting anyone who dares be close to him. Fascinating stuff. One of my favorite lines, Mr. Sell said, Department of Labor would eat my lunch if I ran my operation like this.
Oh my God.
And then Wonka gives Charlie and Grandpa Joe like a tin tureen full of chocolate. I don't know if I've ever said the word tureen before. That was fun.
It felt new to me when you said it.
I know.
Like, I could tell.
I didn't know that was going to come out.
Did I use
that? Let's see. Did I use that word correctly?
Ooh, our favorite game.
Okay, not really.
What is tureen?
A tureen is a small, flat, ovular serving dish. So it was more of a tin cup.
Can you imagine being served a flat serving dish of chocolate?
Do you have the Wonka Watch thing open? I want to show you what a tureen looks like.
Okay.
This is so a little ornate for the circumstances.
Whoa.
I didn't use it that wrong. I think the gusto with which I said it kind of evens it out. But
it felt
anyway, he gives them like a tin cup full of both of them, a mug. That's what he calls it in the script.
A vessel.
And he says
of the chocolate.
So he gives them from the chocolate river, and I was like, not from the skin rash river, no.
Oh no.
Wonka says, what's the matter? Hasn't there been anything to eat in your house lately? And Grandpa Joe says, not much. And he goes, I'm sorry to hear that. So I have to think there was some my way I've rationalized this is that Wonka set up a communication system where they would tell him if they needed money, but then they never followed through on their half of the bargain because of being too proud or something.
Yes,
that's the only way I can make this not feel weird that he didn't compensate this family. Do you know what I mean?
Same.
Okay, so this pissed me the fuck off. So Miss Beauregard says, so Willie, can I call you Willie? And he says, sure. Can I call you Susan? And she says, my name's Felicia. And he says, aw, too bad. And then my notes say, bitch, fuck you. What, bitch? Come for me out of fucking nowhere at 3 a.m. as I read the Wonka script.
A time travel
I got fucking name dropped in a Wonka script.
Yikes.
I have the same name as Violet Beauregard's mother.
Which is interesting, if you think about
Plot
that.
twist, I am Violet Beauregard's mother.
Oh my God. Whoa.
And now we get so tell me, Willie, is there a Mrs. Wonka? And Wonka looks at her a moment, then stands up. Lights, please! So we have the same Wonka with an ambiguous sexuality who seems to get scared at any mention of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're inside the tunnel at this point. They don't do the whole, terrifying tunnel scene, which I think is for the best.
Yeah, it looks more like the Chocolate World ride.
Yeah.
It's like you're in a little tube.
Have fun.
Wee, conching.
It's all clear white. And then they dock. The passageway widens and we see several barges docked at what appears to be the edge of a desert. Oompa Loompas in Arabic robes and headdresses bustle about loading the barge. Several other Oompa Loompas sell trinkets, t-shirts, coffee mugs, giant foam fingers that form number 1 from a tent on the sandy shore. Stop the boat, Wonka says. So now we are in the sugar room, which is a new thing. It's a huge fucking desert. You know what? This was giving me very Night at the Museum vibes.
Oh, yes. Sugar desert. Everything is made of sugar. And then he keeps, a classic Wonka keeps calling it dessert. And Violet's like, you mean desert, don't you? And he's like, no, dessert.
Yeah, so a bunch of Oompa Loompas materialize and they have a big string of camels. So he just fucking has camels. You know. He gives canteens to everybody and he's like, we have a long journey ahead of us. So he puts his hat on over the scarf around his head because they have to wear, for the sugar, whipping up in your face and shit. Mm-hmm. Anyway. And then Mr. Beauregard in her phone is like, just order me a Chinese chicken salad and a Red Bull. I should be there in an hour, which was very funny.
So good.
So they dismount at a water hole. And Wonka tells them to throw sugar into the water hole, because
it tasted too sour, which made no sense.
Yeah, Violet's watching them all from the top of the dune get into a sugar fight. Basically, Violet is not allowed to engage with the other children in childish play, and it's sad for her. That's the whole bit. Wonka says, the sand tells a story. If you stare at it long enough, patterns begin to emerge, and each pattern tells its tale. And Miss Beauregard says, no offense, Mr. Wonka, but could you cut the Lawrence of Arabia crap and just tell us where we're going? Very good fun. Very fun. Really enjoyed that.
So good.
And then he's like, the Rock Candy Mountain. There's so much, topology in this. Mm-hmm. I want a map of this Wonka factory because what is happening?
I need a Lord of the Rings level map of what is going on in this ecosystem. Huge.
So the group in full climbing gear makes their way to the top. It's like an assault on Everest with several Oompa Loompas acting as Sherpas. One of them is carrying Mrs. Salt on his back. Okay, so this is weird. A lot of the Oompa Loompas talk exclusively in commercial slogans.
Mm-hmm.
So Veruca's like, I'm getting tired. Do you think you could carry me the rest of the way? And Oompa Loompa says, got milk? And she says, excuse me? And she says, nobody does it like Sarah Lee. What? Okay, that was...
and then zips away.
So it means they learned English through watching TV, which is fun, I guess. Mm-hmm. But it is why? This did not need to be in the movie. Mike says, pardon me, vomit. And Violet goes, it's Violet, platehead. I don't know what are you guys talking about?
They just hate each other and it makes no sense.
Mike is like, hey, Bucket, need a hand? But then holds his glove out as a fake hand so that Charlie grabs up to it and grabs onto the glove and then falls and he's like, oh, I don't know.
He can fall into his death. But then, so the weird thing is throughout this scene, Grandpa Joe has a weird energy boost. He is on an adrenaline high, and like Charlie kind of notices it. Like Grandpa Joe takes a deep breath as he hoists like Charlie up, and Charlie's like, "What?" And Grandpa Joe's like, "Don't you just love this mountain air, Charlie?" And Charlie doesn't know what to say. Is a line here, and I can't help but think like, was the chocolate spiked? Did Grandpa Joe at some point get the Riddle in bar? I don't know, but he's not just, oh, I got up out of bed finally for an extended amount of time. He is like, I'm ready to fucking go, man.
I mean, he did eat food.
Yeah, he finally had energy. Who thought?
Who knew? They all look up to where Wonka stands in the mouth of a cave. A blinking red sign in the rock above his head reads, "Exit." Very fun. This is where I said, I feel like here is the who cares zone. This is where I was like, he's really saying fuck it, because they all get in the cave and start to sink through quick, sugar. And Wonka's like, you just have to go with it. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just like close your eyes and sink. So they sink through.
But they're still screaming, and it just covers their screams abruptly. They're just cut off, which was...
And Oompa Loompa and Wonka's hat is just sitting on top of the sand, and Oompa Loompa grabs it. And then they drop from the top of the frame, and now... they are okay. I thought they dropped right into the inventing room. They don't. They just kind of
they drop into a corridor, and they walk past this one door that says, "Keep out, don't come in, stay away, go on, ... leave." And Wonka goes, "Oh no, not this room. We're not going in there." And Grandpa Joe has a moment where he's just staring at that door, and then Charlie's like, "Grandpa," and he's like, "I'll come here in a sec." And then we enter the nut room.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a fizzing lifting drinks moment for a second. I thought it was doing that, but it wasn't. Also, the head Oompa Loompa comes in and gives him the hat, which implies that there's like a staircase right next to it.
Yeah, there was something way easier, less terrifying. It didn't have to scale an entire fucking mountain way to do this.
So I do like the switch up of putting the nut room first.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting, and I liked it. I mean, it's not first, but of the separate rooms, not the chocolate room debacle.
Yeah.
You know? I thought it was good. So this is the whole nut room. He's like, I have squirrels and shit. Mr. Salt is like, why do you use squirrels? He says, no, these are special squirrels that I've bred and raised especially for the job you see them performing here. And Mr. Salt says, you know, Wonka, you go through a lot of trouble just for a few nuts. A few? We sell them by the 1,000. Well, that's your problem right there. You could cut your costs right down if you only used half as many nuts. I suppose I could also use rocks instead of nuts and save even more money. How about that? And he says, and how do you control the quality? A busload of migrants could probably do twice the work the rodents do, and you wouldn't have to have a place to feed them or provide them with a place to live. And then Wonka says, unless you've been a servant, you can't use a servant. Nuts. The girls are fighting. I will say Scott Frank seems to be the only one who has perceived the genuine major issues with Wonka and has made him serve as a better alternative to another character. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we mentioned it last episode, but I really do like the comparison of like Mr. Salt to Wonka, because they are in similar businesses, and you can kind of see where Mr. Salt kind of represents some of the other adaptations of Wonka, even if they've not been this extremely, stated, but it's kind of like, that's kind of what happened.
I don't think this Wonka is a bad person, like most of the other Wonkas. He seems to be genuinely just except for the whole not giving money to the Bucket family, but I need to get over it and just move on.
I think it
would have been fixed in the rewrites.
Sense.
Get me one of those squirrels, Veruca says, and Mr. Salt says, don't be silly, sweetheart. Those all belong to Mr. Wonka. And Wonka says, actually, they don't. They belong to themselves. And this is the kind of, like, it's kind of really cheesy, but it is, like, silly. Better than anything else. Mrs. Beauregard says, Dollar says Daddy caves, and Grandpa Joe says, sucker bet, which is nuts. Like, the fact that they interact is crazy.
I love it. Everyone interacts with everybody in this one. So good.
So Mr. Salt is like, everything's for sale with enough money. And Wonka says, you have to take it up to the squirrels. So Wonka's like, you need to cut a deal with the squirrels themselves. And he says, let me tell you something, Wonka, money talks. And Wonka says, not to squirrels, it doesn't.
And he's like, these are also very shrewd squirrels.
They are. Careful. They will drive you out of house and home. So Mr. Salt opens the door, and we see a 4-foot-tall squirrel standing there in front of them. This is a giant squirrel.
It's the exact note. Is so funny.
He just says, we understand this is no forced perspective. This is a giant squirrel. Like, I want you to know this squirrel's 4 foot tall. So then Mr. Salt introduces himself, and he's like, price is no concern. In fact, I just have a small sample of what's here to offer. And he takes out a package of salted peanuts. Mr. Salt takes out a huge wad of bills from his pocket and is like, name your price. And the squirrel grabs all the cash from his hand and starts to rapidly count it like a cashier at a casino, which the image of is very good. And then he offers Mr. Salt a handful of walnuts, and Mr. Salt says, I'm really not a walnut person. And the squirrel starts growling. And then he goes, but then I don't want to offend. Takes the walnuts. But suddenly, all the squirrels have grabbed Veruca and are dragging her into the nut room. And, one of them taps Farouk on the head and starts going ballistic. It starts screeching at Wonka, which, like, this is genuinely pretty scary. Mm-hmm. They're mad because they've sold Wonka. They got sold a bad nut. So basically, Mr. Salt thought he was buying one of them, but in actuality, he sold both him and his daughter for like 5 walnuts.
Yeah, which was so good. And Wonka's like, "Ooh, you pissed them off, and we can't really do anything about it because they'll just get worse." So, oops.
Yeah, and Mr. Salt's like, but I paid good money. And he's like, well, I should have told you your money doesn't work in here. And he's like, what? And Wonka's like, it's only fair. Their money doesn't work out there. So, like, get with the fucking program.
His solution is, if I were you, I'd do exactly as they say until I can figure something out. And then father and daughter are dragged into a passage at the far end of the room as another squirrel slams the door on the group. And Wonka goes, yes, well, goodbye now. And then they just move on.
And then Wonka looks at Grandpa Joe, who's staring at him expectantly, and he's like, maybe I'll send a couple Oompa Loompas back in there to keep an eye on them. At the right moment, they'll snatch them back. He's like, I just hope they don't squirrel them away like they do with everything else. Then we'll never find them. So now Mrs. Salt is sitting on the floor of the corridor crying. Wonka crouches down beside her and offers her his silver case of chocolate. And she's like, thank you. And now we get this whole Mrs. Salt backstory.
Which is wild.
Mrs. Salt said, you know my name's not Joy. No. I just called myself that one day because I wanted to be happy and it stuck. So what's your real name? Agnes. That's a nice name. I know! Mrs. Salt cries even harder. And then he says, you know, Mrs. Salt, naked people don't drop things. Is this a saying? What is this? I don't understand.
It's just weird because she's the one that keeps being assaulted throughout this entire thing.
It felt like a weird come on, but it wasn't. And I know it wasn't.
No, it's like that could be a phrase and it could be said to any other people, but you can't say naked to her in this situation. But I think it's supposed to be like, if you're just yourself, you don't have to worry about keeping up a face or something.
I looked up naked people don't drop things. This is not a phrase.
Okay, so Scott Frank was just like, you know what? This is really cool. And I came up with something
really neat, guys, and I think you're all going to love it.
I'm really cool. Scott Frank, I enjoy that you tried. It's interesting.
And then an Oompa Loompa comes to take her away and says, hey, mama, come to where the flavor is. And then Wonka's like, I'll have a few escort you because I don't trust that motherfucker, which is nuts. So then we do this thing where the script catches up with the kids from earlier. So we see Augustus Gloop come out of the pipe and onto the metal grate where he sits stunned. Augustus is like, hi! And the head Oompa Loompa smiles back and then raises a fire hose up into the frame and blasts Augustus with it. So the kids interact in this probably the most out of any version, and it is my favorite thing about it. Because Mike's like, you remind me of somebody, Charlie. And Charlie doesn't want to take the bait, but he can't help it. So he's like, who? And Mike says, Tiny Tick. He's the leader of the Lime Colony in Bloodbug, the game that just came out. And then Violet goes, I bet you're a real popular guy, Mike, but everybody wants to be your friend, but your phone rings off the hook. It's really Factory 4. It's like so Factory 4.
Violet comes to Charlie's defense a lot too here.
Yeah.
But you're honestly reading this, I was like, my Factory 4
was spot on.
So weird. I was like, Scott Frank and I need to like
hang out,
get some tea one day and just discuss.
Yeah, because you guys
we're
wrote
in the same
exact same characters,
universe,
really. So now we're going into the inventing room, and it's described as a giant witch's kitchen. Ooh, I don't know what energy just came over me in that moment. Wonka, now more excited than ever, moves among the saucepans and machines like a kid among his Christmas presents, not knowing which thing to look at first. There's strawberry juice water pistols, which we could make that, exploding candy, luminous lollies, mint jujubes, cavity-filling caramels, stick jaw, invisible chocolate, candy-coated pencils, magic hand fudge, rainbow drops, And then now we get up to the everlasting gobstopper machine. Violet's like, they never get smaller. And he's like, never. At least I don't think they do. There's one being tested in that very moment in the testing room next door. And then we see a Oompa Loompa sitting in an armchair reading a copy of Vanity Fair while sucking on one of the candies. I will say the only thing I wish the Oompa Loompas had names. I think if they had names, this would have been better.
Mm-hmm.
Because we was just like, there's Craig. Like,
yeah, that would have been good.
Like, I don't know what they would have been named, but I think that would have been fun. And I think it would have been nice and give them even more of the autonomy that this one is giving them.
Ooh, I like.
Mrs. Beauregard checks her watch. She stops an Oompa Loompa who zips past. Excuse me, but you look like you know what's going on. How much longer do you think our little tour is going to take? And then Oompa Loompa just kisses her and runs off. So that was weird.
Wild.
So then the gum comes out of the machine. Violet is like, it's gum. And Wonka says, wrong. This is the Nobel Peace Prize and the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Mm-hmm. I like that he did acknowledge that like his inventions have like mass repercussions in good ways and bad ways, because with this gum, he's like, I have the cure for world hunger casually. With
and he does
gum.
say this does have the nutritional benefit, you know?
Yeah, not just the flavors. It's actually got like all the stuff that comes with it.
Violet's really excited about this, and Mrs. Beauregard goes, I thought we were going to see the means of production and distribution, but it's just candy. I mean, Vi, wouldn't you just love to see the corporate offices? Which also, Wonka has a corporate office? Nuts. I don't, like, it's probably also in this building, and it's just Oompa Loompas, which I do like. Anyway, so Wonka's like, I haven't gotten it quite right, but soon, very soon, you know, blah, blah, all this bullshit. And then Violet goes, psst, poor kid. So she doesn't know Charlie's name, and she makes Charlie stand in front of her like a human shield while she eats the gum.
Yeah, she steals it, and then she says, doesn't look like much, but hell, right about now I'd take a moth-old piece of Frieden if you gave it to me, because she has that like gum addiction.
I like you said moth-old like it was a word instead of month-old.
Oh, month. I'd take a month-old wow, I really did when I first read it, like moth-old, like, oh, whoa.
Old as a moth, you know, the famously elderly bugs.
Moth-old.
Moths are just like the grandpas of butterflies, if you really think about
yummy.
it. So we get tomato soup. Yeah, it's hot and creamy and delicious. Really? I can feel it running down my throat, bitch. Scott Frank is doing it for us all.
A gem.
But basically, this is just happening between her and Charlie, which I think is really way more interesting and has Charlie more involved, because Wonka's just like fucking off somewhere showing everybody else something.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I'd really do the beef a little more on the rare side next time, but it's still awesome. And the baked potato is good too. Crispy skin, lots of butter on the inside. Very nice. And then Charlie is coming in and he's like, you're not touching anything, are you? And Charlie
Wonka.
and Violet are like, nope. And then she's like, oh my God, blueberry pie, it's my favorite. All this shit. And then Mike TV comes around the corner. He's like, hey, Bucket, I get it. What sticks to you, but you don't mind? And Charlie says, your nose? And Lunch is like, what? And then Mike goes, no, I was going to say. And then Mike goes, a booger, because he spots like a blue dot on Violet's nose.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes, you know, TV, only you wouldn't mind having a booger stuck to you. And now she's turning blue. And Charlie goes, your whole face is turning blue. And she goes, et tu, Charlie? Because she thinks like they're fucking with her.
Right. And she keeps blowing up. And Wonka, by the way, he hasn't, he's not like fully over there yet. So we have all three of these kids being like, you're turning blue. Violet's like, no. And Wonka's like, kids, where are you? And they're like, shit. Fuck, you're turning blue. And they're like, everything's fine. Except Mike's like, yo, how cool, when she starts inflating. And Violet's like, oh my God, what's happening? And then Wonka just like appears behind them, and then you just hear go, I advise you to spit out the gum. And what I liked is Miss Beauregard, instead of our Violet, you're turning violet, there's a nice nod. Miss Beauregard goes, Violet, you're turning purple all over. I was like, I like the fake out. Very cute. And then we have again the whole thing where she blows up, and
it's like it always goes wrong when it comes to dessert, and Wonka says failure is the mother of success. I don't think that's a phrase. I think the whole thing is he's doing phrases but slightly wrong. I think that might be the bit.
Ooh, I like it.
Mike says to pop her with a pin, and then Wonka goes, it always happens like this. I've tried it 20 times in the testing room on 20 Oompa Loompas, and every one of them ended up as a blueberry. It's so annoying. I don't understand it.
So annoying.
So then he sends her to the juicing room. I mean, we know all this.
Wonka does the whole, it's unbelievable, the children are disappearing like rabbits, looks like Mike and Charlie, and Grandpa Joe's like, okay, shall we? And then we go to the TV room.
An ordinary newscast. No, we have the TV screen
Oh,
first.
right. Oh, my
ordinary
God,
that is, except
favorite.
for the fact that an anchorman is a large skunk, which this is notable because Frog Ficklegrubber could foreseeably exist in this universe if we have talking skunks and giant squirrels. Which also,
God.
how many squirrels does Wonka... Like, this is fucking... His factory's fucking crazy. Anyway, so basically it's revealed that they are inside a home where Veruca is pushing a vacuum around the home of a rich squirrel family, and we're deep inside the factory somewhere. And the mother and father squirrel are sitting on the couch in the armchair respectively watching the newscast. And basically Mr. Salt and Veruca are like their servants now. And then the squirrel daughter is dressed like Veruca, jumping up and down and pointing to the television where there's a commercial for a stuffed human toy. And the Oompa Loompas are watching this through security monitors.
Just
Wild.
like laughing. And then like at one point Veruca's like, we gotta go. And her dad's like, no, we just have to do what they say. You remember what happened last time? And I'm like, what? Oh, God. So genuinely terrifying, but one of my favorite scenes.
And so nuts. So then Mike is like, hey, Wonka, don't you have a fucking golf cart or something? And Wonka's like, golf cart? No, but I do have an elevator. I'm so tired. Like, I'm so tired. So you're getting the weirdest line reads from me today. I'm keeping myself entertained.
I love it.
There's no consistent Wonka voice today.
You know what? Because this Wonka, who's to say what this Wonka is? This Wonka is...
I can't do a Nick Cage impression.
Wild. So he hops in the elevator. He hits, he's like, choose whatever room you want to go to. And classically, Mike's like, yo, a TV room? There we go. Hits the button and zigga zigga ah. We're in the TV room.
There is elevator music in the elevator.
So good. So good.
There's like 1,000 buttons as well. And then he says, television, chocolate, that's where I want to go. And Wonka says, I would hold on if I were you. And he says, you kidding me? I got killer balance. I can grind my dick while eating a hot dog. That is potentially my favorite Mike TV line. I got killer balance. I can grind my dick while eating a hot dog. like if someone insults you, it's like, okay, you can say that, but I can grind my dick while eating a hot dog. So
like, what a flex, you know?
How
many of us can?
I can grind my dick while eating a hot dog. I ate him right the fuck up.
I ate him right the fuck up.
I can grind my dick while eating a hot dog. If Timothée Chalamet wasn't playing young Wonka, he could play a grown-up Mike TV. And I do say that solidly.
100%.
He could play Mike TV in The Factory 4.
I 100% agree.
I can grind my dick while eating.
I fucking ate him right up.
It's me who grunts. I ate him right the fuck up.
So the elevator, it's really violent and like swerving around. And Wonka's like, oh, everybody grab a strap. We've still got a long ways to go. And then they keep trying to like grab it. And then like there'll be a turn and then they all fall to the ground. So they eventually are able to like get up. But basically we have our classic elevator chaos, whatever's happening. And then at one point they just drop straight down like a stone. And Mike goes, oh God, the cable broke. We're crashing. We're all gonna die. And Wonka goes, calm down, boy. It's fine. And as we go down, we see an entire village of Oompa Loompas. There's children Oompa Loompas dashing this way and that. Everyone's playing. We see giant storerooms, stuffed floor to ceiling with candy, rooms full of Oompa Loompas wrapping chocolate bars. We see bizarre machinery, pumping stations, odd vehicles. And then we come out into the open and see mountains made of fudge, a lake of caramel. Steam rises off the surface where we see a dozen Oompa Loompas out in the middle in boats.
Mike goes, I think I'm going to be sick.
And Wonka's like, please don't.
Like I can help it. And Wonka takes off his hat and gives it to him to barf in.
Which
seems out of character, but this Wonka is so...
Yeah, it's like this gesture still, like, he's still peeved, but he's like, okay, here you go, kid. Like, he cares. It's so interesting.
This is the Wonka who I would most like to hang out with, I think.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be, like, scared.
I think this Wonka is the most akin to what I imagine Timmy Wonka will be like.
Yes, same.
Which is like fucking weird. I don't feel like this one loses the character of it all, but he doesn't have the random bouts of anger. He doesn't have like the violence associated with the character. Do you know what I mean?
There's logic with this Wonka that I follow. I think that's also what makes
I
it.
think
like
this is much closer to what I can expect from a Timmy Wonka. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly, but I think this, if Timmy Wonka is like this Wonka, I will not be upset.
Yeah.
Because we're used to Wonkas that are so extreme, seeing one that's a little bit more of a person, you know?
It's still having good lines, though. Like, we're still getting, like, the
weird
like,
bullshit. Yeah.
Weird, like, the kimono thing. Like, it's just all these little isms. But he's like, I'm just eccentric, but not in a, like, level 10 way. But in a way, I think that makes it even better. Like, just all these other things are chaos around him. It's not just Wonka is chaos. It's that the 4-foot-tall squirrels have their own world. The Oompa Loompas are having their own, like, giggle fest with, like, tricks and stuff they want to play. Like, all the other things in this factory are the, like, weird parts, I would say, that Wonka usually as a character is having to hold in our other canon. But now the entire, like, setting itself gets to be more, you know?
Yeah,
like, I feel like it's more
feels like
in the world.
it's kind of become bigger than him, and he's okay with that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So now we're in the TV room. The TV room in this one is long and narrow and painted white all over. Huge lamps hang down from the ceiling and bathe the room in a brilliant blue-white light. There's a giant camera on wheels, and the Oompa Loompa army in this one are all in bright red spacesuits.
A whole army of Oompa Loompas is different than the Oompa Loompa army. I would like to clarify.
I read army afterwards, and I was like, that's I feel like they
do
would
they probably have an army? Yes.
Yes. But it's probably not that big. I was like, I think that gets the point across. No, it does not. It does not. This does feel like a military experiment. There is something more military about this thing that feels more, it feels like a government conspiracy. It feels like the TV room could be in Stranger Things season 7 when they really 100%. Run out of fucking ideas. They're like, Russia is actually building a TV room.
So we gotta do it quick. Yeah. And as always, it creeps me out. I never like not in a bad way that I don't like the TV room. I'm just always like, ugh, body horror. Like,
and then Wonka goes, now, as you all know, watching television is extremely dangerous. And Mike goes, no, it isn't. And he says, watch too much, it slurs your speech and blurs your vision, and seriously, it diminishes your reproductive capacity. And Mike is like, no, it doesn't. What the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, but I found a way to make television good for you. And then Mike looks at Charlie, and Charlie's like, I don't fucking know, dude. This guy's nuts. He's like, I don't know it. Then eventually we whip pan over to an Oompa Loompa in a Britney Spears t-shirt who is in front of the camera singing, oops, I did it again. And the Oompa Loompa dissolves. Which I forgot he sent an Oompa Loompa.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this is like, we're filming this Oompa Loompa as an example. We see the tiny particles whizzing through the air.
And the Oompa Loompa does dissolve. Let's be clear. Wonka says, now then, the very first time I saw television working, and Mike goes, back in 1950, which is, I call you fucking old, you bitch.
So good.
Wonka says, why can't I send a real bar of chocolate whizzing through the air in tiny pieces, then put the pieces back together at the other end, all ready to be eaten? And Mike said, because it's a bogus idea. There's just no way. Like, the why? And Wonka says, you could be very off-putting. You know that, Mike? And Mike says, thank you.
So good.
Mike in this version is an icon. I loved him in this. He was so good.
He has such good lines. And then we bring out the big candy bar, and he does his classic. Wonka's like, even with ordinary television, when you photograph a big man, he never comes out on screen any taller than a pencil, right? So that's why it has to be big. But Mike's like, well, no, but that's because. And Wonka's like, all right, here we go. It's like Mike's like, no, like the science of it. And Wonka's like, no.
Yeah, and he's like, there's dangerous rays, and Mike's like, I don't fucking believe this asshole, which is honestly kind of fair. Like, he's given no reason for him to believe him.
Yeah.
So he sends the chocolate, all this happens, and Mike is thinking, it's even faster than the internet, and Wonka goes, the what? Wonka does not know what the internet is, which I do love. So and then Mike is like, what about people? Could you send a person from one place to another? And Wonka says, a person? Are you on tilt, boy? Which is weird because he insisted the Oompa Loompas were people a while ago. And I guess maybe the size could be so, but I did not notice this plot hole the first time, but this one is confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know why he had them send the Oompa Loompa through first. Maybe that was like, he shouldn't have dissolved the Oompa Loompa. It didn't make sense. Anyway. But Wonka's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could. Like, I wouldn't risk it, though. But then Mike's like, I'm going to be the first one to do it. Wonka's like, no. And then, you know.
Oops, he does.
Wonka's like, we have to remain absolutely quiet. The slightest movement or the faintest sound can disrupt the entire process. As we remember from the one scene in the Tom and Jerry Wonka where they all swap heads and bodies for a good 2 minutes. Forgot about that until this moment. I did.
Same.
Just wanted to remind everybody about that. Remember,
Great.
in the Tom and Jerry Wonka movie, there's a brief moment in which Wonka has Tom from Tom and Jerry's head on his body.
The worst TV scene.
That's some trauma we haven't explored with TJ Wonka.
Yeah. No.
Imagine talking to your therapist.
TJ Wonka.
All right, so now they're in the infirmary, and there's like a bunch of
basically
IV bottles on stands all around.
We're in the juicing room, but they're all like dressed up as surgeons, and they're trying to figure out like how to juice Violet, basically. And so at one point, one of them is holding a saw, and the other one is holding a drill. And Mrs. Beauregard the entire time is like, oh my God, oh my God. And she rips off her nicotine patch and grabs the head Oompa Loompa, and she goes, you munchkin, gotta smoke. And then he zips up on the counter and pulls out a pack and extends a smoke to Miss Beauregard like he's Hugh Hefner. Amazing. And then Violet's just been awake this entire time.
Great work, Scott Frank.
And she's like, it's not working. And then she basically, and the most disgusting thing, I am not a pimple popper person, but she pops a zit and everyone's like, shit. And then she explodes.
They do. I want to give him credit. He established her being a pimple popper very early doors. So earlier when she started taking up chocolate in her interview, she was like, I don't like chocolate though because it gives me pimples and I hate them and I always want to pop them.
Kudos.
So like he set this up. So I want to give him that. That was... But it is odd. And then basically a giant wave. The door is blown off the hinges and a torrent of purple glue now spills, not glue, goo, now spills out into the corridor, washing away everything in its wake, including the Oompa Loompas. And now we're back in the television room, and Grandpa Joe looks off and hears the sound, and he's like, what was that? And Wonka's like, what was that? Which I do like. Like, I feel like everything is actually happening to mention at the same time.
We kind of brushed over it, but Mike is in process
this is one of the best
going to the TV, and it's taking a while. So that was this cutscene. And now we're coming back. And Charlie's like, why is it taking so long? And Wonka's like, I hope no part of Mike is missing. And they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, sometimes like we find only about half the little pieces make it there. Like last week we sent a bar of, and Grandpa's like, what the fuck? And Wonka was like, yeah, let's just hope if Mike comes back in two pieces, at least it's the top half. And then Charlie or Wonka, Mike then shows up on the TV. And we then proceed to go through a beautiful changing the channels, classic, gotta hide from all the hijinks happening scene with Mike just being like, I'm in the TV, it's great. And he almost dies multiple times.
Yeah, he's on the Discovery Channel. A crocodile comes after him. Then he's on an episode of I Love Lucy, where I Love Lucy. She works with the candy conveyor belt episode, which I think was cool. And Wonka goes, "Oh, I love this one." And I was like, "Of course he would." The channel then changes to a hockey game, and there's this one part where like the puck comes flying at us, and I'm like, "This was built for 3D. Like this was being written when 3D was starting to like pop off." You know, I didn't like saying "pop off." That didn't feel like something I would say. Sometimes like I use a term, and I'm like, "That doesn't feel correct." You know. Like
true.
No, terrain felt in character for me to say. Pop off felt a little too trendy.
The self-awareness.
You know?
100%.
Terrain, I look like a person who would use the word terrain.
Sometimes facts are just facts.
And is that a read? Maybe. I
think it's delightful. It's a Nightline.
Yeah, and then it goes to Nightline. With Ted Koppel. I don't know who the fuck Ted Koppel is. And they're talking about the Oslo Agreement with Yasser Arafat. I don't know who that is. These were probably people who were relevant in 2001. And then Mike TV runs across the desk, and he notices that, and like Ted Koppel swishes him off the desk. And then it goes to the Home Shopping Network, where there's a bunch of carved Civil War soldiers, and Mike TV tries to steal their bayonet. And the host picks up Mike and was like, he's so lifelike. And then it switches to Survivor as a group of hungry contestants sit around the fire preparing to eat a rat, which does not fucking happen on Survivor. What Survivor are you watching? And Mike turns, sees Charlie's face where the sun is supposed to be. Suddenly, Charlie is reaching for him, pulling him into the television chocolate room. And Mike's like, that was awesome. And Wonka goes, thank goodness he was completely unharmed. You know, all this stuff. He's about an inch tall. And Wonka goes, no need to worry, my boy. You're going to be back to your normal height in no time. What was your normal height, by the way? And then the Oompa Loompa says, I may not be a doctor, but I play one on TV. And Wonka's so anti-TV, but it's funny how clearly, like, the Oompa Loompas learned English that way. And, like, everybody, I think he's just really...
They're really into pop culture, and he has no idea what's going on.
I kind of love that.
Yeah.
And so the Oompa Loompa leader talks to Wonka about it, and Wonka goes, exploded? Oh boy. There's a minor problem at the infirmary. I'll just be a minute. And then Wonka goes, get a mop! And we hear sobbing off screen. And that's Mike TV. And Charlie goes, Mike, you okay? And Mike goes, they're gonna kill me. The other kids at school, they're gonna kick the crap out of me. And Charlie goes, why? And he goes, because I'm only 3 inches tall, dickhead. They're gonna want to get even for all the times I beat the crap out of them. And then Charlie goes, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll. Mike goes, maybe feel sorry for me. That's even worse.
Oh. And then Charlie's like, you know what? I think you're growing. Mike's like, yeah, really?
And Mike goes, hey, Charlie, I think I know the answer. What sticks to you but you don't mind? And Charlie says, what? And he says, a friend. I'll see you around.
Look at that character arc. They're friends.
It was like the shortest character arc, but it was very sweet. And I liked it. Cute. It came on a lot faster than I remember it coming on when I first read it.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay.
I was like, okay, we're friends. Wow.
So they go out into the corridor. There's no one around. And Charlie's like, I think we're lost, but Grandpa Joe doesn't answer because he's too busy staring at the giant metal door, the one with the sign that says, keep out, don't come in, stay away, go on, leave. Which I do think is funny that they took the elevator to essentially get about 5 minutes away. Like to be across the hallway, right?
Yes. Yeah, that is exactly what happened.
Because that's such a Wonka trait.
Yeah.
Charlie's like, Grandpa. And Grandpa Joe looks at him, opens the door, and takes a step in. Unfinished room, day. High brick walls, the scaffolding still there, bright light streams in from the open ceiling. Charlie looks around at the blueprints and the sawhorse. Old framed photographs lean up against the walls covered with dust. Charlie goes, Grandpa Joe? We see that he's crying. Charlie goes over to look at him. He looks at the picture. It's of Wonka surrounded by his workers. He has his arm around the man next to him. Dad? So this is the gay subplot. There's a little bit of something hinted here. Mm-hmm. And we are reaching and we are looking for it, but there's some stuff here, which is it's still wild. Wonka did not financially help this family, but I have to assume there's some way.
There has to be a way.
Maybe Grandpa George was like a fucking gambler and he gave them a shit ton of money and they gambled it all away. Like, I don't know, man. I just need there to be a reason. Charlie is like, this is where, and Grandpa Joe says he was working up there when part of the scaffolding gave way. And then Charlie says, this room, what was it supposed to be? And Wonka off screen says, my home. So Wonka's standing in the doorway and the head Oompa Loompa stands beside him. He says, one of my Wonkers. No, I ruined this somber moment of the script. One of my workers once told me that it was a crime to have something as grand as this factory and no one to share it with. So I said to this man who laid every single brick in this factory, every single brick, this man who was my friend, my father, yes. I said to him, build me a home where, and then the Oompa Loompa leader goes, where the buffalo roam. And Wonka looks at the Oompa Loompa and goes, go clean up the blueberry girl, please.
Just so good.
Fucking read the room. Wonka shakes his head, turns back to Charlie. I said, build me a home where I can raise a family, right here in the middle of the factory. Do it as if you were building it for your own family. But then, well, the worst thing that could happen happened. You never finished it, Charlie said. Wonka says, no, and I never will. You are. Looks at Charlie. So,
which, like, grammatically doesn't make sense. Sorry.
No, I was realizing too. I was like, you will should have been what he said.
Yeah,
but,
you are.
But yeah, there is something, I don't know if Wonka was pining after this guy. It does feel a little bit like that when it's like, someone told me I should have a room to, I don't know. It's little, it's giving me more like ambiguous, but definitely.
the mom figured out that they were having an affair, and then that's why she turned down the money. She's like, I want nothing to do with you. You ruined my entire life.
Maybe.
I don't know. One day we'll find a way to make it work.
Homoeroticism. Wonka will never escape it.
Never. Never. Impossible.
Charlie looks at the photo, and Wonka's like, he would talk about you every day. He couldn't wait for you to be born. He knew it was a boy. He said he could just tell, and he would tell me what a fine boy you were going to be. I think you're finally ready now. Ready? For what? Charlie said. Wonka said, to be a kid. All these years you've had to be a grown-up. You've had to take care of everyone else. And then we hear sniffling, and Wonka sees a few Oompa Loompas in the doorway weeping. He rolls his eyes. Do you mind? Like, they're just fucking, like, ruining the moment, so like, funny. Every 5 minutes. But it is, like, it does seem like it was his intention the whole time to give him the factory.
Yes.
But I don't know why he didn't give him the money. I don't know. I need to get over this. I need to just get over this and pretend it's all taken care of. So Wonka says, Charlie, I can never bring your father back, but I can give you this. Wonka then holds out his walking stick for Charlie. Charlie takes it and stares at it. Charlie goes, a stick? And Wonka goes, either I'm not making myself clear or you are somewhat dimmer than I was led to believe. Which is really funny.
Such a read.
And then Grandpa Joe's like, you're giving him the factory! And he frowns at a stunned Grandpa Joe for spoiling it all. He's like, are you fucking... Let me have my moment, Joe. I'm giving you the factory. And Charlie's like, I don't understand the contest. And Wonka's like, I had to first make sure you were as your father said you would be. And then he says, then why bother inviting the other kids? Because he's going to need some help, Wonka says. This is my favorite part of this script. Because Wonka brought these other kids to be helpers for the factory. He says, Grandpa Joe says, you're kidding me, right? Those brats are going to help. And Wonka says, they're not so bad. In fact, they're all good in their own way. And today they all got what they needed. You'll see. Anyway, we better get going. We don't have much time. You have a lot to learn. He leads them to a door marked dangerous stuff, keep out. And I've always wanted this. I will say I was so disappointed because we did not get a flash forward that showed us how these kids work in the factory, which made me so pissed. I wanted to see Violet like doing her business. I wanted to see Augustus being like the flavor master. It made me pissed off. I didn't get to see it.
Mm-hmm. But I love the concept of the kids. They have goodness in them and that it's not their fault. It was their parents' fault for a lot of it. And like the kids had wake up calls and were like, oh, I need to change it. But like we really were like not villainizing the children as much. It was like, no, they have a chance to redeem themselves.
I know. And they actually got involved and it made it so that it wasn't completely like, fuck those other kids. I'm just torturing them because I can. You know, like it makes way more sense. Anyway, so then they get the elevator. He pushes the up and out button. The elevator music keeps playing. So then they burst through the ceiling. This wraps up really fast. The town around the factory is quiet. A bird pecks at some seed on the roof. Suddenly there's a loud crash. They burst through it. And then Wonka's like, how I love my chocolate factory. Wonka looks at his reflection in the glass, and as he does, Charlie sees the old face reflected there that we saw in the mirror inside the factory, which I missed that the first time. I missed that. Was that mentioned?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Okay, when was that?
That was right after, what was it? Something, they all fell through the quick sugar sand. And Violet was looking at her reflection because she was trying to fix her hair. And then Wonka does the same thing with his hat because he gets his hat back. And Charlie sees him looking and sees the reflection of the old man. And Wonka turns around and he's like, let's keep going then. So,
yeah, which this is nuts. So he's like a vampire Wonka Vita Wonk situation. Yes. I don't know.
Not explain. And like you said, this wraps up pretty quickly. And I would have loved to like cut more to get more of this end.
I want to say
there's a lot to talk.
This script is so long. This script is over 170 pages. And the rule of screenwriting is that a page equals a minute of film. So this movie would have been 2 hours and 40 minutes long at this point. You know what I mean? So I don't think he could have really expanded more than this because he would have been hitting 200 pages at that point. Yeah. I think there's stuff he could have cut.
I think the Rock Candy Mountain probably could have been cut.
Yeah, you could have cut most of the Sugar Desert and the Rock Candy Mountain. It was kind of not that really, you didn't need any of it.
But, you know.
And some of the Oompa Loompa sexual harassment could have gone. But,
you know, little thing, that's fine.
Yeah, I would have loved an after the factory thing, but it's fine. So Wonka does the whole, I'm an old man, Charlie, much older than you think. I don't even know how old I am anymore. Okay.
Like, what?
I says, I just know I can't go on forever. And all the Oompa Loompas do that salute to Charlie, and Wonka goes, it's all yours, sport. And Charlie goes, the other kids, they're okay, because we see the other kids leaving the factory. But then Mike TV is accompanied by both his parents. So I guess his parents showed
They
up.
came, I guess. Yeah.
And he says, of course they are. They're better than okay. I told them they all got what they needed. Okay, cool, whatever. And he says, we have to go find the rest of your family. And he's like, show me what house is yours. So they all come down to the factory. So the bucket house, the three grandparents snore loudly. It crashes through the ceiling. The three old folks all stir as if all they heard was a knock at a door, which is funny. But then one by one bolt upright as they see the demolished house all around them, and Mrs. Bucket comes running into the room. Dear God! Everyone stares stupidly as the cloud of dust settles, and we hear a ding as the elevator doors open, and now Wonka casually steps out, reaching into his coat, and extends the silver cigarette case to the three old folks in the bed. Chocolate? And this is how it ends in this time period, which I actually think is a really nice. I liked that kind of. I liked how it was just like, and we're done. Like, we don't need any of the grandparents being like, but my bed. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. I do think we have no resolution about the mom. I'm sure she has a lot of feelings about that, but you know what? Okay. Whatever.
Sure.
That's a thing I can't let go of, but.
No, we each have our issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now. It's newsreel footage of a factory as hundreds of kids stream in through the wide open gates. Last week, the world's biggest birthday party was held inside the world's biggest chocolate factory. Oompa Loompas chase after the kids. We see a figure in a hat and a long cloak moving among them. And as the figure turns to greet another child, we see it's not Wonka, but Charlie, the youth still in his eyes, all grown up now. A reporter shoves a microphone in his face. When he was alive, Wonka never let anyone in the factory, which I was like, he's dead!
I know.
So Wonka's dead. I just really wished in this moment we could have gotten stuff from Violet Augustus. And like all the squad, because I think that would have made this near perfect to me. It didn't deliver on that front, and it really bummed me out. And Charlie's like, no, he didn't. And the reporter said, if he were here now, what do you think he'd have to say about all this? And grown up Charlie says, I think he'd say, happy birthday, Charlie. And the movie freezes on his smiling face, and it fades out.
Don't like the last line. I think it's kind of stupid, but I like the idea.
I was like, okay.
I feel like Scott Frank was like, I need to fucking wrap this up.
I don't fucking care. Yeah, literally was like, I guess fucking happy birthday, Charlie. I don't fucking care. I know I never established this earlier, and it doesn't really matter, and he doesn't really care about his birthday that much, but I don't really, like, you know.
Yeah.
I guess this fucking works. It's fine.
You read the end on the script, and I just imagine Scott Frank punching his keyboard, being like, the fucking end, and then slamming his laptop shut, and he's like, I'm free, Jesus Christ.
I've turned in my contractually obligated giraffes. I'm done.
I can
move on. No one has to talk to me about Wonka ever fucking again. Because remember, this is one of his favorite books, and I feel like he must have fallen a little out of love with it while writing this.
Yeah.
You can almost feel that. You can almost feel it. And I feel like because it feels so similar to our experience doing this podcast, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What a time.
So good.
I'm so glad we got to read this fucking thing. It is a work of art.
Makes me very happy. I'm glad to have a canon I highly enjoy. As predicted, Felicia, this is officially
it's really
my favorite
not
Wonka.
Canon. It's like so skewed.
Yeah.
But yes, it is.
It's in the universe as a written thing. I guess it didn't become anything, but you know.
If you were talking to people, imagine you're at like a dinner party and someone innocently asks you, do you prefer the 1971 Wonka movie or the more recent one? And you say, actually, I like the 2001 unreleased Scott Frank script. Thank you very much. You know the guy who wrote Minority Report? That one's my favorite.
Oh no. I don't want to be that person, but I am now.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a Wonka and a kimono with a cigarette, a cigar case full of
all you have to say is, he writes with chocolate milk out of a martini glass. And the Oompa Loompas wear Britney Spears t-shirts. What else could you want?
Mike
you
TV
get to
calls
experience
Charlie
what it's like on the dark side, where I'm like, but what about the Broadway version where he goes through an invisible maze? You guys haven't even heard about it, which is funny because like I really don't like the Broadway version that much. It's just it was a bright spot for me.
The fact that we can, and then when you compare it to the Golden Opera, I'm like, I hate how much I know about this. I hate it
literally
so much.
like.
But this made me happy.
The musical has only gotten better with time. Weird,
right?
Say.
I'm like, man, that actually was pretty good, wasn't it?
If I had to pick one to rewatch, it would be pretty high on the list.
Yes.
Of them,
agreed.
So. God, I'm so glad we got to read this though. Like this was great. I mean, the ending kind of was a bummer, but again, it would have gone through more rewrites. I'm sure the plot holes would have been fixed.
A lot of the good ideas were there. I like the direction.
This is definitely
going,
one of my favorite adaptations. I think the first half felt a lot more fully baked. The second half felt a little bit like, but that's okay. I think it's fun to have a little bit of okay, sure.
Yeah,
in your Wonka
exactly.
script.
And like,
That
yeah,
has
to be
be
fair,
in there.
like you just said, to be fair to Scott Frank, this is a rough draft. So like any like reads we're having on this is obviously a rough draft. This is no way, obviously, it just being like, what the fuck did you do? We just would love to see this happen, maybe.
I'm glad the kids were implied to work in the factory. I just wish we would have seen it. That was my biggest hang up. That and the Nordic woman. Why was the Nordic
woman? Unless, see, I thought she was going to be like a love interest that we'd like lost touch with, and now we get to like have her come back or something. But like, no, it was just stupid. So
yeah, no point.
Oh well. What
Anyway.
possible predictions do you have, Felicia?
Good God. Wonka will look wistfully at a family photograph.
Oh, so good. I'm going to predict that a bunch of animals will be let loose by accident and hijinks will ensue. Like when a pig pen like gate breaks open and all the pigs run.
Do you think a bird will have a personality
moment?
Will one of the animals have a small personality moment? And will one of those animals also be a rat who will scurry and someone who will scream and maybe a fish will come out? We do a lot of animal predictions.
There are. This one's pretty solid,
which is
though.
funny because there has not been any animals in like Wonka canon ever, really.
Yep, correct.
Wonkas are near absent from
this
Wonka
Wonka,
canon.
to be fair, is outside of a factory for, I would consider, probably the entire movie until like maybe an end scene. So like this is Wonka in the wild. So yeah, you know what? I'm gonna
Wonka in the wild. Anything can happen. He's guest starring on Zaboomafoo with the lemur puppet.
But I love it. Anyway, I will.
We've been recording for an hour and 15
I'm going to
minutes.
save us. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wonka Watch. We highly appreciate it. If you want to follow us, you can do so on TikTok and Instagram at Wonka Watch, where you can see extra goodies. Feel free to send us DMs or email us at wonkarapture@gmail.com because we love to hear your hot takes. Again, thank you, Evelyn, for sending this over to us. If you find little goodies like this, we love hearing from you. And if you want to support this podcast, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/WonkaWatch. And we will give you a little shout out and an improvised song of varying quality.
Yes. By the time this is launched, we should, by all accounts, have launched our monthly thing, which is very exciting on there this month. For the month of February, we will have up a commentary track for the 1971 Wonka film, so you can listen to us as you watch it and hear our stupid opinions. And then also a video of us roasting all of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book covers I could find on Goodreads that we recorded about 8 months ago. And they'll finally have a place to live.
Nice little goodies. So
yeah, if you join us on there in the monthly thing, we're basically putting out one piece of guaranteed content a month. And then if we have more time, we're putting out a second thing. And if you donate there, we will also do the little song, and you get your own little Wonka Scholar diploma with your name on it. How exciting!
Ooh, so cute. So thank you to everybody. And at the end of the day, after 2 hours of talking about this and reading 172 script that really changed my life and made me happy about Wonka, and I haven't been happy about a Wonka creation in a while. I've been pretty mean about it, you know?
Yeah, you've been a little down in the dumps. I mean,
I've been sad.
We're only a few short weeks after your, I think it's fair for me to say temper tantrum about the opera.
my mental breakdown about the opera. Yes. So anyway, at the end of the day, it's not that important.
It's not that important. Scott Frank ate him the fuck up. He ate him the fuck up out of a tureen.
I can grind and eat a hot dog.
I can grind and eat a hot dog while I eat the fuck up out of my tureen. Bye.
Bye.